through it. Yeah, we'll see. They kind of all go together, so it should be quick. What's that? It says in the handbook, yeah. So I had skipped over. You want me to help? You're going to help me stay longer? I'm sure you can. So I had skipped, so we're in Proverbs 24. I had skipped verse 27 because I felt like it went better with verses 30 through 34. So I'm going to kind of put them all together today. And a lot of it has to do with hard work. So that's kind of where we're going here. But to get started, I'll read it for you in the King James, Proverbs 24, verse 27. Prepare thy work without, and make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterwards build thine house. And in the Passion it says, go ahead, build your career and give yourself to your work. But if you put me first, sorry, I lost my place. But if you put me first, you'll see your family built up. I love that. You put me first, you'll see your family built up. It does say, though, go ahead, build your career and give yourself to your work. And then we're going to get into verses 30 through 34, which really talk about having good work ethic. So both are important, but ultimately putting him first. So then I wanted to read for you out of Luke chapter 14. It talks about really the cost of following Jesus, putting him first. All right. So Luke 14, 25 through 30 is where I'm going here. And this section is titled, The Cost of Following Jesus. As massive crowds followed Jesus, he turned to them and said, when you follow me as my disciple, you will appear to others as though you hate your father, your mother, your wife, your sisters, your brothers. Yes, you will even seem as though you hate your own life. This is the price you'll pay to be considered one of my followers. And anyone who comes to me must be willing to share my cross and experience it as his own, or he cannot be considered to be my disciple. So don't follow me without considering what it will cost you. For who would construct a house before first sitting down to estimate the cost to complete it? Otherwise, he may lay the foundation and not be able to finish. The neighbors will ridicule him, saying, look at him, he started to build but couldn't complete it. How true is that if we don't really consider the cost? We become a mockery, right? If we don't consider what it will really take to follow Christ, and we only do it part way, it really becomes, more of a negative than a good thing, right? But I thought that was interesting how it says, when you follow me as my disciple, you will appear to others as though you hate your father, your mother, your wife, your sisters, your brothers. Yes, you will even seem as though you hate your own life. I think that concept there is just thinking about, there is so much in the Bible and in what God calls us to that really we have to deny ourselves, right? There's so much there that is, if we want it to be a me life or all for self, there's a lot of stuff we could get ourselves into, a lot of junk. And our flesh wants to, But the cost of following him is that we essentially hate and deny ourselves. Not hate ourselves in a way of putting ourselves down, none of that. Essentially denying ourselves, hating the flesh, and following wholeheartedly after him. And at times, it may require that you disagree with your family, that you don't condone what they're doing, but you love them, and you follow wholeheartedly after him. And if you put him first, you will see your family built up. So there's our hope. That's it. We got one? Go ahead.
Go ahead. Right hand, hey. I think I get some back right there. Hey, you never know.
how guilty do you think the church is of not doing just that? Do you know, I shouldn't use the word curse, but we got bought out by a corporation going on 5 years now, I think, 5 years. And I was a shop foreman. I got elevated to a position of manager, which unfortunately placed me into having to take all the online junk about sexual harassment and corporate stuff, insider trading, stuff that, my God, I was shop foreman. I used to work out on the floor helping the guys with machines, running a machine. But anyways, I'm sorry, I went off on that.
Go ahead. It's fine.
But as a manager, when we hire somebody, you know what they get? About a 100-page handbook.
Yeah.
And you go through the handbook. Oh, you should go through the handbook. A lot of them don't. But only to find out that I didn't know that. And I wonder sometimes if somebody new, you encounter somebody new, you do your little part in God's kingdom of evangelizing, and you sit down with somebody and you invite them to your church and you go through all the details. So I just want you to know, it's going to seem sometimes like your mother and your own father actually hate you. You're going to lose all your friends. Yeah, you like going to the beach on Sunday, huh? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. On occasion it might, but some people like going to the beach every Sunday.
Right.
And I bet you if I went down each row here and got a list of stuff that people actually had to give up, But that's the price that you pay. And if you don't pay that price, it's going to cost you. And right now, unfortunately, I don't believe that this country is paying that price. I heard the weirdest thing today I was listening to a video on YouTube, and I heard about a $150 million hotel that was built in Singapore, and they have a 24/7 prayer room in the hotel. We are so far away from that happening in this country. God forbid if you ever publicly announced that you were building a hotel with a prayer room in it, So, I don't know. I think that...
Especially if it was to the one true God, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I still believe that putting the effort into it, God will back us up.
Yeah.
Whatever we do, like you said, God first. If we put God first, I don't care if you're greedy. You put God first. God will take care of the greed issue in your life. You'll have more. How many in here could say that I've got more than I need? I have more than I need. Because God's been faithful to us. We've been faithful. Now, I'm not going to say, well, most of the time, but I think as a people in this church, we've been very faithful. We've had good leadership. We've had a good pastor, and Sister Fran to set good examples for us. And I think as a result of that, God's blessed us for our faithfulness.
Amen.
I don't think that there's a lack. If there's a lack in here with anybody, it's because that it wasn't made known to somebody else. Because, in this church, we believe that every joint supplies. But I had to just wonder to myself when you said that it's going to cost you. And I think that sometimes that's what people need to know, that it's going to cost you, but boy, the rewards are great.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah. I was reading some quotes to, you want the mic?
No. Can you go back and read that portion out of Luke?
Yeah. Reread the portion out of Luke. The whole thing? You had a specific word? Okay. As massive crowds followed Jesus, he turned to them and said, "When you follow me as my disciple, you will appear to others as though you hate your father, your mother, your wife, your sisters, your brothers. Yes, you will even seem as though you hate your own life. This is the price you'll pay to be considered one of my followers. And anyone who comes to me must be willing to share my cross and experience it as his own, or he cannot be considered to be my disciple. So don't follow me without considering what it will cost you. For who would construct a house before first sitting down to estimate the cost to complete it? Otherwise, he may lay the foundation and not be able to finish. The neighbors will ridicule him, saying, "Look at him, he started to build, but couldn't complete it."
That's a mouthful. You want that now?
I think there's a multiple things we can think at. It's almost like having children. Jesus said, if you follow me. Everybody wants to get married, but they forget the whole idea that all the lovey-dovey and everything that takes place, sooner or later, there's responsibility. It's called children. And you start out with the children. And there's a time when children get to be a little work, and if you really see the purpose of you having children, the Bible says that you train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he'll not depart from the way. And it isn't easy to do the work, and sometimes as parents we forget that we got a job, we got labor on our hand. We don't count the cost. You begin to see, all right, it isn't the idea that we just have kids. The idea is we're raising another generation, another group of people that need to take over, that need to be in charge, need to be adults, need to be all that. And I had a thought while you were saying that. I've been in third world countries 3 times now. One thing I noticed, the first thing I noticed, Mexico, in the 90s, the early 90s, I went to Mexico on a mission trip. And we had a drive from Monterrey, Mexico to Torreon. Monterrey at that time was a very modern city because Ford, Chrysler, and all of them had gone in and made factories there. But I noticed from there to Torreon, 280 miles, that there was hundreds of buildings that had started and never finished. In all kinds of disarray. They'd used new material to start. Say it's a good idea.
Good idea. Yeah.
We got started in a good idea, but we never finished. So then I went to Africa, and I noticed the same problem there. You'd get around, you'd see all these places, they'd start out houses or shops or buildings or whatever, and they were just tin shacks and done them, just never got finished. And I'm concerned that the body of Christ is the same way. The reason they don't finish is because they get distracted. They didn't count the cost.
Yeah.
They get distracted from the goal. There's always something coming up that can distract you from the purpose.
Yep.
There's always something. It's going to come along. And if we understand that God is working with us, He allows that to see so you can find out where your heart's at. The key is, where's your heart? Are you going to quit? He's not going to quit on you. I've never seen God quit on anybody yet. But I've seen thousands of people quit on God. And I'm not telling you to just go out and be terrible sinners and all of that stuff, but they just don't fulfill the purpose in their life. You can sit right here in this church.
You're getting too much in my message. God. Got all these scriptures that are like boom, boom, boom.
You can sit right here and backslide from the purpose
You're right.
God set you here for.
You're right.
Because you think it's one way and God's saying it's another way. And the reason he allows the test to come to your life
Yep.
is so that you can find out where your heart's at. If he said all things, I got a question for you. How much is all? If all things work together for good, for them that love the Lord and who are the called according to his purpose, if everything, good, bad, and otherwise, is working for your good, then you got to find out what that good is. What's the goal? Count the cost.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
That's okay. It's good. It's good. All right. So the next verses, I'm going to read them all together, and then I'm going to kind of like break down some additional thoughts with them. So we'll just read it in the, I guess I'll just read it in the Passion real quick. Verses 30 through 34. One day I passed by the field of a lazy man, and I noticed the vineyards of a slacker. I observed nothing but thorns, weeds, and broken down walls. So I considered their lack of wisdom, and I pondered the lessons I could learn from this. Professional work habits prevent poverty from becoming your permanent business partner. And if you put off until tomorrow the work you could do today, tomorrow never seems to come. So, right to the point. But if you look at some of those verses there, you know, the field of the slothful, some of the other verses you can find kind of in relation to that is Job 4:8 says, even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. So you're going to get what you sow, right? Ecclesiastes 10:18 says, by slothfulness the building decays, and through lowering of the hands the house leaks. Just like Pastor's saying, now those buildings weren't completed, but even so, a vacant building doesn't maintain itself, right? It's amazing. Anything left to itself literally will go to destruction. It just, you know, it needs maintenance, it needs care, it needs work, it takes effort. One of the verses in there, verse 32, says, then I saw and considered it well. I looked upon it and I received instruction. So I'm going to read out of 1 Corinthians chapter 10. And this is learning from Israel's failures. And it's right where Pastor was going with, you know, we can be sitting in these seats, and are we all going to make it, you know? So learning from Israel's failures. I'm going to read out of 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 12. My dear fellow believers, you need to understand that all of our Jewish ancestors who walked through a wilderness long ago were under the glory cloud and passed through the waters of the sea on both sides. They were all baptized into the cloud of glory, into the fellowship of Moses, and into the sea. They all ate the same heavenly manna and drank water from the same spiritual rock that traveled with them, and that rock was Christ himself. Yet God was not pleased with most of them, and their dead bodies were scattered around the wilderness. Now all these things serve as types and pictures for us, lessons that teach us not to fail in the same way by callously craving worthless things and practicing idolatry as some of them did. Right? And how often lately I'm trying to finish up my house and I'm decorating and things like that, and I find myself thinking more about decorating it than I am about the things of God, right? We have idols that pop up in our lives every day. We do. We get preoccupied, callously craving worthless things. Think about that. Yes, I care how my home looks, but really at the end of the day, if a fire comes through, it's gone. It's worthless in the grand scheme of things. I'm not taking it with me, and it's not investing in the future of my children, and it's not doing all of those things that really matter in this life. For it is written, the people settled into their unrestrained revelry. With feasting and drinking, they rose up and became wildly out of control. They rose up to play. They says in his footnotes, he talks about how this actually seems that sexual immorality is more likely the inference here. Think about that today. All kinds of it. Neither should we commit sexual immorality, as some of them did, which caused the death of 23,000 on a single day. Nor should we ever provoke the Lord, as some of them did, by putting him to outrageous tests that resulted in their death from snake bites day after day. And we must not embrace their ways by complaining, grumbling with discontent, as many of them did, and were killed by the destroyer. All the tests they endured on their way through the wilderness are a symbolic picture, an example that provides us with a warning so that we can learn through what they experienced. For we live in a time when the purpose of all the ages past is now completing its goal within us. So beware if you think it could never happen to you, lest your pride becomes your downfall. So think about that. It's like, you see the results of someone's laziness or the results of someone allowing things to creep in their life, and you're like, instead of judging, like we've talked about in weeks past, or instead of pointing fingers, or instead of walking by like you never saw it, maybe think and ponder. And learn a lesson from it. How can I make sure I learn from those experiences so I don't have to go through it, hopefully, and that we, don't stumble in our own pride. But it's going to take focus, and it's going to take counting the cost, and it's going to take a lot of sacrifice. It does, it is. All right. And the next verses go into, yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travaileth, and thy want as an armed man. So I'm going to read about the ant in Proverbs 6. Proverbs 6 through 19. These are life lessons. When you're feeling lazy, come and learn a lesson from the tale of the tiny ant. Yes, all you lazy bones, come and learn from the example of the ant and enter into wisdom. The ant has no chief, no boss, no manager. No one has to tell them what to do. You'll see them working and toiling all summer long, stockpiling their food in preparation for winter. So wake up, sleepyhead. How long will you lie there? When will you wake up and get out of bed? You keep nodding off and thinking, I'll do it later. If you keep nodding off and thinking, I'll do it later, or say to yourself, I'll just sit back a while and take it easy. Just watch how the future unfolds. By making excuses, you'll learn what it means to go without. Poverty will pounce on you like a bandit and move in as your roommate for life. Here's another life lesson to learn from observing the wayward and wicked man. You can tell they are lawless. They're constant liars, proud deceivers, full of clever ploys and convincing plots. Their twisted thoughts are perverse, always with a scheme to stir up trouble and sowing strife with every step they take. But when calamity comes knocking on their door, suddenly and without warning, they're undone, broken to bits, shattered, with no hope of healing. It continues with 7 things that God hates. And when you think about, 7 here, of course, is the fullness, in this manner, it's the fullness of an abomination to the Lord. There are 6 evils God truly hates, and a 7th that is an abomination to him. Putting others down while considering yourself superior, spreading lies and rumors, spilling the blood of the innocent, plotting evil in your heart toward another, gloating over doing what's plainly wrong, spouting lies in false testimony, and stirring up strife between friends. These are entirely despicable to God. All right. So beware. Don't be lazy. Don't be slothful. Don't put off till tomorrow. We don't know if tomorrow is promised to us. It's not promised to us. All right, but if that brought you down, because I wasn't trying to bring you down, I'm going to read from Psalms 37, and this goes back to what Pastor said too. God has never failed us yet, and he never will. I would encourage you actually to read all of Psalm 37, but I'm not going to do that to you. But it's really good. I was like, where do I start here? Where do I end here? It's so good. But I'm just going to read verses 25 through 29. I was once young, but now I'm old. So think, this person, I mean, as he's talking, he has experience, right? I was once young, but now I'm old. Not once have I found a lover of God forsaken by him, nor have any of their children gone hungry. Instead, I've found the godly ones to be the generous ones who give freely to others. Their children are blessed and become a blessing. If you truly want to dwell forever in God's presence, then forsake evil and do what is right in his eyes. The Lord loves it when he sees us walking in his justice. He will never desert his devoted lovers. They will be kept forever in his faithful care. But the descendants of the wicked will be banished. The faithful lovers of God will inherit the earth and enjoy every promise of God's care, dwelling in peace forever. I love that, you know. I mean, I thank the Lord every day. I was raised in a Christian home from birth. There are things we talk about sometimes, and you know, people will be like, oh, I just, you know, I'm so glad from what God saved me from, you know, or out of. I'm glad that he saved me just from it all, you know. I thank the Lord every day that I didn't have to go down those paths, right? But now I have to make sure I stay focused to remain on the path, you know. And there are going to be testings and trials. There are testings and trials. But it says, not once have I found a lover of God forsaken by him, nor have any of their children gone hungry. So when you think about this, it's like, yes, we may come on hard times in our lives. And there's verses we read in weeks past about, you know, when crisis hits us. But there's substance to us because of the one that lives in us, right? So we have everything we need to not be lazy, to not be down and out, to not live in poverty, because we have all the wisdom we need, and then we have the strength to do it, right? So I'm going to read for you a couple of quotes and things that are just motivational on effort, because I feel like these verses are very much along those lines. You know, yes, we need to maintain our faith and to, you know, count the cost and live all for him. But I truly believe that these scriptures are both natural and spiritual. So in a lot of ways, the spiritual things are the testing of our faith and all those sorts of, you know, making sure we're going to do the right thing in the right places at the right time and just really focusing on the Lord and not having other idols, and all those things are spiritual. But there's actually the natural, get up and go to work every day and work hard for your family and take care of your home, and whether it's a, you know, a physical job, but literally there's something about laziness or just sitting and resting. It only takes, like, I forget the period of time, but you know, within like 1 to 3 days or something, if you've been totally sedentary, you have like atrophy, like starting immediately. Your body starts breaking itself down, like it's just dying, right? Because you're doing nothing. And so there's like literal, like natural laws of like maintaining strength and going forward and being successful and productive. Laziness and that like folding of the hands and just sleeping and resting, you're starting that atrophy process immediately. Now, you need your 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just at the times of day that you should be awake and either doing natural work or the work of the Lord. You need to be doing it. Don't put it off. So I have a couple of quotes. So one is from the United States Marine Corps, of course. No one ever drowned in sweat, right? Okay? It's not going to kill you. It might hurt a little bit, but it's not going to kill you. There are no shortcuts to any place worth going. No shortcuts to any place worth going. And a classic from Thomas Jefferson, I'm a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more I have of it. Right? A lot of people think that they're just going to buy their lottery tickets and one day they'll be all set. But wisdom would say the odds of winning that are horrible. So he's a great believer in luck, and he finds the harder he works for it, the more he has. The more luck we have, the more we put forth effort and create. We have a hand up in the back.
What you were just talking about, Karen, with the laziness and the physical and spiritual, because I've gone through that just kind of recently, and I was dry inside, and I didn't realize it. And I was in work, and my spirit was so hungry for food. And when I was reading, I was reading it so fast. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then it wasn't until kind of just recently, yesterday, and maybe last night, I said, oh my goodness. I had I thought I was doing good, but I had let myself go spiritually as far as reading goes, because I thought I was filled up, but I guess it wasn't. And when I started reading, like yesterday, I soaked for like a few hours, and I felt so much better. But when you don't do that, it actually makes you weaker. You're vulnerable to attacks, to things you can't see, and now you're kind of, I hate to use that word sucking wind, but you're that's how I say it. I got to say it differently. You're very, you are susceptible. That's a good word. Susceptible to the forces. You're susceptible to people around you that aren't where they're supposed to be. And so you're fighting to get back, and you're actually sluggish.
Right.
You're not strong enough physically. So I saw that last night again. I'm like, what is going on? And not just spiritually, physically, if you don't get yourself, not just physically going, but if you don't feel yourself like water. So I was spiritually dry, really dry, and I didn't realize it, and water-wise too. I was dehydrated, and my body was dehydrated. So I'm drinking the water, I'm drinking and drinking and drinking. I'm like, what is going on here? This isn't helping me. And so I just kind of sensed in the spirit to get in my presbytery. And I did it like 3 o'clock this morning or something like that. And I'm reading and reading and soaking and reading. I'm like, oh my God. And I can feel it coming up. You know, I can feel myself being spiritually built up to the point where it was starting to overflow. I said, Lord, overflow me. And I just kept reading and soaking and reading. So if you don't do that, both spiritually and physically, as far as food goes, and physically to keep yourself going, you're going to be under attack, and you're not going to be able to handle it. Because I've been doing that myself. I've been like with other people, and I won't, so other people, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like hurting, and I didn't know. I was struggling so really bad, struggling. And I said, Lord, what are you saying to me? And I kept praying about it. And then I started saying, okay, I need to read. Well, yesterday I was able to do that, like I said, and I was able to read for a few hours. And man, did it feel good. So this morning I did the same thing. I just kept reading and reading and soaking and reading. And man, it just kept filling me up and filling me up. So just to encourage people, it makes a difference. Yeah. It really does. Yeah. So just to encourage.
Does.
I was thinking about when you said not resting but taking a break. Just completely sleeping in, where at times, everyone, we got to take a knee. We got to take a breather. We got to regroup, reassess, look at because sometimes the enemy likes to take a different route. They try to flank us from a different direction. And so sometimes we got to reassess the situation and make a different attack or a different defense. And I look at it as a military thing, is that you're fighting, you can be in a long firefight, But there's a time where you got to regroup, reassess, restock, hydrate, take a knee, because sometimes we got to look at, all right, now what's the enemy doing? Which direction they're going now? You know, and we're in a spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
And sometimes we got to say, all right, God, how you want me to move this week? And that's why I feel like in this fight, that's why we come to church on Sundays, is because that's our time to see where pastor's saying, hey, this is what the enemy's doing. This is what, almost like we're in a boxing match, you got the rounds. You're fighting all week long, and then that bell rings, and you get a short break. You get to take a water, but what's the coach over there doing? Hey, you need to keep your guard up. You need to jab more.
Yeah.
You got to watch his right hook. Do this and that. That's what pastor's doing for us, spiritually speaking. Because we're in a spiritual fight, and we are soldiers of the kingdom of God. We are the army of God, and so we have to remember that we are all soldiers in the same fight, for the same purpose, for the same advancing of the kingdom of God. Yeah. And so at the same time, I'm only as strong as the person next to my left and right in the United States Army. We believe that because it's not an individual thing, it's a team thing. Yeah. We're only successful if we work as a team. Yeah. And so even in that, I think that is the same that applies for the church. We're only as strong as the person to our left and right. Yeah. And if one is weak, we're all weak. Yeah. And so we got to make sure that we're looking out for each other as well, keeping each other accountable, lifting each other up, being there for them when they need us. We've got to look out for each other because we're one team, one fight.
Yeah. Yep. And the other part that I didn't break down as much there, but the field of that lazy man, he observed nothing but thorns, weeds, and broken down walls. And you're right, we can come on Sundays, but we need to be fighting the rest of the week as well. It's both parts of that. We look at our yard right now. We've planted grass and we're watering it, but there are a lot of weeds out there. You know what will grow fast and furious? Weeds. The more you water them, the more they grow. But that idea that, eventually, as we fertilize and take care of it, the grass is going to, but it will overtake it, and the weeds can be gone. But I guess the point is that keeping your guard up and constantly focusing on this, weeds will grow in stony places, in dry places. They'll grow pretty much anywhere, which is all the more reason that you cannot rest and you cannot allow your focus to be redirected to other things, because as they do, those weeds and thorns come in so fast. And then to actually get rid of weeds and thorns is a hard process, right? It really requires gloves and digging and getting in there and pulling out and tearing, right? And it hurts and there's effort. So it's both sides of it, cultivating the really good things and staying committed to that process, but also making sure that the walls don't break down and the weeds and the thorns creep in and cover over. So that's why it's such a natural and spiritual depiction here of how we have to keep our guard, keep focused, put in great effort, and really press on in Him, counting that cost, and just going forth with such motivation and determination because He's never let us down. I found this other quote that says, "Experience is a hard teacher because she gives the test first, the lesson afterwards." And it's so true, But just be thankful when you're getting the test. A lesson is going to be learned in this process. So don't be faint of heart. Drink water, right? And that's what I have with Proverbs 24. So Pastor has something. Pastor's going to cap it off here.
I was thinking back about what Josh had to say about the battleground. And life is a battleground. But the problem is, we got, that's it, Irene, that's what a battleground is. The battleground's not out there. It's not on what's going around you. It's what's going on in here. Brother Kelly used to say this: I believe in a great big Jesus and a wee little devil. Your devil is only as big as you think he is. And your Jesus is only as big as you think he is. And so the battleground isn't out there. It isn't in somebody else. The battleground's right here. It's what you decide.